Welcome to the Writer's Block, our weekly look at all things sports. I'm Jenny Carlson here in the studios at the Oklahoman, joined by the great, the one, the only Cedric Golden from the Austin American-Statesman. How's it going, Ced?
What an introduction, man. I've never been called great at anything. I'll take it.
Hey, let's see how great we can be today talking about NBA free agency, because that's our lead segment. Everybody obviously looking toward this weekend. Sunday it starts 5 p.m. Central Time. We don't have to wait until the wee hours of the morning for all the stuff to get kicked off. But obviously, so many big headline players out there. Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, Kemba Walker, on and on and on. The first question I think a lot of people have, because it's the biggest rock in the stream, it seems like, is Kevin Durant. He declined that player option with the Warriors. So where's he going, Cedric?
I don't know, and I don't think he's going to return to the Warriors, Jen. I really don't. I think he might end up with the New York Knicks or the Brooklyn Nets. That's what the tea leaves are saying. He could come back to Golden State for 221 million bucks, but I just get the feeling that he's not going to be doing that. So I think the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers just brought in Anthony Davis and teamed him with LeBron James, that has to put them at least in the conversation. You add KD to that mix, and you're looking at an NBA championship contender. So it's not as set in stone that the New York Knicks would contend if they picked up KD and Kemba Walker. They'd be a good team, but I don't think they'd be able to unseat the Raptors if they keep Kawhi Leonard. So I just think that KD has his pick of the litter. LA represents the best chance to win a championship. The Knicks represents the best chance for him to be the guy, along with the Kawhi Irving. So championships and money aren't always mutually exclusive. But I think KD's won championships, and I just think he wants to be the man wherever he goes.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision. Obviously, with that injury, and a lot of people of the belief from all the reports is that Kevin Durant is going to be unavailable this next season. So he's obviously done these short-term deals, one-year deals with the Warriors over the time he's been in Golden State. I thought he would maybe do another one of those with Golden State for this rehab year. So to me, that's surprising that I thought maybe he would stay after the injury. I felt like before the Achilles that he was for sure opting out, for sure headed into free agency. But then I thought that introduced some questions. Now, that it's going to be interesting to see how that affects Golden State. But, the Lakers, Cedric, the only thing, and we've talked about the Lakers at different times over the last 4 to 6 months here, and they're just such a mess. And I know that sometimes players ignore all of the bad juju and the bad signs that are out there, and they just roll with it. But, it just feels so uncertain. I know they've got 2 superstar players there right now. But gosh, it just seems like the upheaval there is really, it's not unprecedented. We've seen stuff like it before, but it's just crazy to have that, highly esteemed a franchise in such disarray. I think it opens the door, as you mentioned, possibly the Clippers, possibly the Knicks, possibly the Nets. I don't know where he goes, but it seems like to me we're seeing sort of almost a flattening out of these super teams, Cedric, because, Kawhi Leonard, another big fish out there, looks like he may stay in Toronto. I don't know if we're going to see teams necessarily with 3+ superstars on their teams. It sort of feels like we're seeing that maybe flatten a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be another team with 3+, but if there is, I don't know who it's going to be.
Well, and the one thing you have to look at is with the dysfunction with the Lakers, with Magic Johnson abruptly resigning his post and allegations of backstabbing and all of that. The one panacea to any kind of drama is wins. You get KD, you get Durant, you get LeBron on the same team. All of a sudden, we're not going to be talking about Jenny Buss anymore. We're going to be talking about how that they probably win 55 to 60 games. So at the end of the day, it's about what's on the floor and what's off the floor. If LeBron James and Anthony Davis bring in Kevin Durant, they're gonna get another mid-level exception player that's very great. to go with the young Kyle Kuzma, who's already on that team. So if Kawhi Leonard stays in Toronto, and it's a big possibility, Jim, because number one, he's happy right now. There's a shot of him at a Toronto Blue Jays game in a private box. He is smiling and giggling and having a great time. So, and Toronto is a great city. It's not in America, but it is a great city for young people. So he may stay. And if he does, then the power base is still going to be with the Toronto Raptors in the East.
Yeah.
If LeBron James brings in KD and LA, the West is still going to be a beehive. Kyrie Irving going to the Brooklyn Nets the Celtics going to go down a notch because he's a great player. So it's going to be really interesting. Those two top dogs, Kawhi and KD, are going to move the needle for what happens in the 2020 season.
Yeah, you mentioned Boston, and that's been an interesting situation for me, at least, to watch. You know, sort of the high that they seem to be riding with Brad Stevens and the trajectory they were on, and now, you know, maybe it's just Kyrie. I don't know, but talk that Kemba Walker could end up there in a sign and trade to replace Kyrie as that point guard, that superstar. But obviously, Al Horford declined his player option. He's now either on the move in a free agent deal or potentially a sign and trade situation. So where the Celtics land, how that affects the East, it's all fascinating. And, you know, it's probably too early at this point to guesstimate, but, you know, winners and losers in free agency, Cedric, I'll be curious to see, can a team like Boston recover after losing what looks like some really important parts? Can the Lakers add another piece or two? I mean, not two superstars, but add some bodies, because obviously with the salary they've got out there, what they've got available to them is a little bit squishy at this point. But, you know, who ends up being on the plus and who ends up being on the minus, I think, is a real big question. And I just feel like it's a little too early to say, because so much is up in the air and so many big rocks in the stream have not landed yet.
You know what? If I'm Boston, we've talked about this, Jen, Kemba Walker, you got to go get Kemba.
Yeah.
You know Kyrie Irving's not coming back. Kemba Walker is 29 years old. He played all 82 games. So unlike Kyrie, he's durable. He averaged almost 26 points a game, had his best year ever, was named All-NBA, and he's a leader of men. He's 29. They can offer him 4 years for $141 million. That's good money. He's played on 3 All-Star teams. Not a lot of people know that because he's in one of those markets that people didn't pay attention to. So I think Michael Jordan doesn't want to pay him the big bucks. So I think Danny Ainge has the money at his disposal with Kyrie leaving. He also has draft picks. So I think the Boston Celtics, if they can land Kemba Walker and pair him with Jason Taylor and Jaylen Brown, and if they bring back Al Horford, Gordon Hayward will be 2 years removed from that gruesome leg injury. Mm-hmm. I think the Boston Celtics will be a player in the East, but they need that big dog running the show. And all indications are, from what I've read, that Kemba Walker has been earmarked as their number one priority.
Yeah, it's going to be, you know, with all these big name players. I looked about a week ago, and I think the total number of free agents that the NBA has listed is over 226, if memory serves me right. Now, some of those are retired guys. Dirk's on the list, D. Wade's on the list. So clearly not exactly the number, but that's a lot of players. And obviously everybody knows the headline guys. So there's going to be some teams that win with those superstars landing in different spots. But with so many players, and obviously as a superstar departs, the salary cap space that opens up for any team that is losing a star, obviously you'd rather have your superstar, but you wonder who fills in. How do they recover from those losses? Who are maybe those second or even third tier free agents that could be super helpful, but we may not be talking about them much because of those superstars? It just feels like, I know there's always a lot of players in free agency. I think with the number of really big names and then the overall number, I think it's just going to be a lot to sort of, sit down with a roster in another week with all the teams and look, okay, who is where, who improved, who did not. I think there's a lot of questions out there because of the sheer volume of numbers of moves that we could be talking about when free agency's up. Again, starts Sunday, 5 o'clock. Synchronized watches. Get ready for the fun. It's gonna be pretty fast and furious, I think. That's right. All right, let's go to segment 2. Let's do Say What? And yes, we're talking about Baker Mayfield and Sam Ehlinger. This rivalry never dies, Cedric. We know that. I know that. You know that. But here we go. Baker Mayfield now playing for the Cleveland Browns, talking trash about the Longhorns. Texas is back talk. He says it's crap. He talks about Sam Ehlinger, says I hate him, he hates me. What the heck what's the view from Austin about all this craziness, Cedric?
Well, here's the difference between Sam and Baker. Baker's going to say what's on his mind, basically, but he shouldn't. He's the face of the franchise now. The Cleveland Browns are an NFL team, and they are a sexy pick to go places in Baker's next season. They are being picked to win their division over the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, more experienced ball clubs. And it's because of Baker Mayfield. He's moved the needle. He has gotten Cleveland excited about NFL football now. So my thing is this, Jen. That rivalry goes way back back to high school or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Baker shouldn't be taking shots at Sam Ehlinger publicly because it's not productive for him. You don't see Peyton Manning taking shots at Tom Brady. You don't see Aaron Rodgers taking shots at Matt Stafford. You don't see Dak Prescott taking shots at Eli Manning. Those are things that you don't do as a quarterback. He's going to have to learn that with this position that he's been given and this platform as a quarterback of an NFL team, it comes with a certain set of responsibilities, and he's going to have to realize that you can't be throwing shots. I know it was said on Sports 1400 in Norman. Guess what? Sports 1400 in Norman has a website, has a Twitter account. That word got out really quick.
Yeah.
And guess what? Cleveland Browns fans are hinging on every word that comes out of Baker's mouth. So Baker's going to have to be smarter. Sam Ehlinger probably does hate Baker, and Baker probably does hate Sam, but they don't need to be making that public.
Yeah, and I didn't have any problem with the whole bit about Texas being back. Now, saying that is that fact or crap or whatever you want to say, but at the same time, the whole thing. I mean, to me, Baker Mayfield, Cedric, you bring it up. He's in a different place now. If he wants to talk about the Steelers or the Raiders or, some other team in his division, if he wants to start talking noise about Ben Roethlisberger, sign me up for that. I'm interested. If he's going to talk the same way about guys he's got to play against, then, that's one thing. But here he is. He's writing checks that, Boogie Radley-Hiles and Trey Norwood and other guys on the Oklahoma defense who are there now are going to have to cash. To me, that's unnecessary. And Cedric, you bring it up. Franchise quarterback, those guys are held to a different standard. And
they just are.
Yeah, and you and I know Baker's a different guy, and the Browns drafted him knowing that. And yet, don't you think there's some belief amongst Browns, upper management, coaches, whomever, that over time he learns and takes a different approach, at least publicly?
Of course. He's got to grow up. He's a young kid. He has that chip on his shoulder, Jen. 2-time walk-on who became a Heisman Trophy winner. You can't beat that. I mean, so when you look at what he's got going, it's a great story. It's a great American success story. If he wants to talk about the Steelers, like you said, or if he wants to talk about the Ravens or the Bengals, that's fine. It's probably not a smart thing to do because he's got to play those guys twice too, and they want to take his head off.
Yeah.
So as far as the OU Texas thing is concerned, if Sam Ehlinger and Jalen Hurts want to go head-to-head in the media, okay, that's fine because we know they're going to play each other.
Yeah.
Not once, but twice, maybe twice in the fall. So, but I think as far as Baker is concerned, he's got bigger fish to fry. I know this is what made him a great player, chip on his shoulder, He was a walk-on who won the Heisman Trophy. But right now, you're a quarterback in the NFL, and it's time to not only show your wares on the field, but accept the responsibilities that come with that position off the field as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting here, and not very long, a couple weeks, Big 12 Media Day will roll around, and Cedric, you and I will be there, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions asked of these current guys, on both sides of this rivalry to answer for what Baker Mayfield said. And he's not even going to be anywhere close to Big 12 Media Day. So it just feels like, he needs to focus on him and what he's doing. You can still be Baker Mayfield. You can still be outspoken. You can still do that to a degree. But it felt like, he's bringing up Lake Travis and Westlake. And, he's in the NFL. He's won the Heisman. Come on, let's not rewind to your high school days, no matter how big the rivalry is.
And do we really need him to tell us that Drew Brees and Nick Foles are the two best quarterbacks to ever come out of Westlake? I think we know that, Baker. I think we know that.
Yeah, I think we understand. All right, let's move on to segment 3, and we've got some must-see TV. Cedric, the NBA awards. When this started a couple years ago, they decided to wait with the NBA awards, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all this. Wait until well after the season was over to have a show and announce all this. At the time, I thought this is a terrible idea. How long we're going to have to wait for these awards to be announced? I think I might be coming around because of the emotion we saw out of these guys who won. It became must-see TV for me, Cedric.
I liked it. Shaq did a good job as the host, and roasted Charles Barkley. That's always fun. The Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, a very emotional MVP speech, tears flowing down his cheeks. I like it. I don't like the timing of it. I wish they could do it like sometime between the conference finals and the finals, somewhere in there, kind of like they do the Pro Bowl, how they have the NFL awards dinner, but during the Pro Bowl weekend. But as far as the show itself, I thought it was fine. It was fun. It was a lot of laughs. It's always good to see always cool to see what guys are wearing, because the NBA guys dress different than the NFL and baseball guys. So the timing's a little bit late. It's the finals were a couple of weeks ago, but I really enjoyed the production of it, and there's definitely room for it. I'm not a big award show guy anymore, Jen, but the parts that I did see, I enjoyed.
Yeah, the timing is odd, and I think the one thing I'm most, at first I was against sort of waiting that long after the season, but now I think that the thing I dislike most about it is that, when Kevin Durant, for example, won the MVP, they did the whole thing here in Oklahoma City. It was, fans, it was teammates, it was the emotion of just being in the city where he played was so significant. So, like Milwaukee, having Giannis win the MVP, it was great to see him have that speech, have that emotion, but Milwaukee didn't get to share in it the same way they would have previously. To me, the timing, while yes, I still think it's a little bit late, the NBA is doing a heck of a job in cornering interest, even when it's not the season. This has been a hallmark of the NFL for a lot of years, Cedric. NFL, 365 days a year. The NBA, you go from the finals to the draft to the award show to free agency. We're talking about the NBA, I feel like, more than we've ever talked about it. And if that's part of why the NBA did this, then it's an NBA win, because it doesn't seem like there's an off season for the NBA anymore.
That's true, and if that's the idea, it's very smart. I know the NFL, they have it on lock for a full year. They've got the draft and they got the combine, and then this little part between now and training camp, the NFL Network's going to come out with their 100 best players in the league. So it's always something. And if that's what the NBA is doing, more power to them, because the show itself was really good and it didn't have any drag, any lag time. So it was fun. The players were there. There was genuine intrigue in the awards.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think it was marketed well, and if the idea is to try to extend the interest in the NBA, because we're getting into summer league coming up, between the finals and summer league, they do this show. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, my must-see TV moves over to a sport that's actually playing games right now, and that's the women's soccer. The World Cup, the U.S. and France playing on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock Central Time is a start time, playing in Paris. Obviously, huge home field advantage for France, and it sounds like it's going to be an amazing scene, amazing crowd. My question is, does any of this lead us in the not too distant future to more audience for women's soccer in the U.S.? Cedric, we've seen it change with the MLS. There was a time when we'd ask this same question. The World Cup would roll around, there'd be interest in the men's game, and then it would kind of die off. Seems like the MLS is on the uptick, that it's become much more desirable league for people to watch. MLS coming to your neck of the woods. I mean, we've seen it happen slowly with the men's game. I'm at least a little heartened that this will happen eventually with the women's game, but it does seem like we sort of, have this big outpouring of interest in women's soccer, World Cup, maybe during the Olympics even, and then it dies off again. But the U.S. and the soccer that we have, domestically, fantastic. I just feel like it's a matter of time, but it does seem like we sort of have these, big peaks and then fall off, peak, fall off, and it just hasn't come to fruition to hold the interest beyond these special events.
Well, you look at the WNBA, how they've struggled to try to find their niche as the NBA continues to be a global phenomenon. I think with the women's soccer team, the one thing I know they have, and Jen, between us, I watched that Spain game. I don't watch a lot of soccer, but I did watch the win over Spain.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, it was tougher than we thought it would be. But the one thing that they have that you have to have for success is personalities. Megan Rapinoe taking over for Abby Wambach. You got Alex Morgan, who's a big time personality, and those girls are making money off the field as well. I've seen a couple of commercials with Alex Morgan just this past week. So as long as you have the personalities that are driving the traffic, the interest, then there's a chance that it can blow up overall. Between us, I'm one of those guys that doesn't watch a lot of soccer, but I do watch the World Cup, men and women. I watch it during the Olympics. So I'm one of those people that does have interest when it's on an international scale. I'm not a guy that's going to be watching the Europa League or the Europa League or Liverpool or Manchester I don't do any of that. But when it's America playing internationally, I'm tuning in because I want to see what we're going to do. So I think it's probably 5 to 10 years away for it to really blow up. Remember when Brandi Chastain took her shirt off?
Yep.
That's been a minute.
20 years.
So they did take a step up from that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the next step is to get people involved in a league, maybe something like the MLS. Can you sell it? That's the thing. Yeah. I saw a lot of little girls in American gear in those stands in Paris. Can you get that audience, which is going to be your future consumer, to support a women's league? I think it's possible. The money is there. The sponsorships are there. You need more personalities to drive this interest.
Yeah, I think what you brought up about, that next generation of fans, I think that's where it really sits. We saw those same young faces, little girls in the stands in '99 when the U.S. won in that dramatic shootout, Chastain winning it for the Americans. Now, those are some of the women that are on the team for the U.S. as we speak. They were young when that happened. So, it does take time to build that up. We've obviously seen an uptick in soccer participation in this country. It just continues on the upward trend. So you've got to think you've got more, natural fans, and then it becomes, how are you going to spend your time? How are you going to spend your dollars? Are you going to take the family to a movie, or are you going to take your family to a game? So, I think it is a matter of time. I'm heartened by the way that the MLS has continued to see growth and, upticks in fans and interest. It has taken maybe longer than some people would have wanted, and yet it's one of those additional, outlets for sports, for high-level pro sports in our country. You got to think maybe the women's soccer will be a minute, but will eventually roll to a higher level as well. Again, Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. We're going to take a work break here, so I hope you do too, Set up the big screens, get some fans. Let's go watch the U.S. and France on Friday afternoon. All right, we'll talk about that and who knows what else next week when we're back on the Writer's Block. Be sure to join us then.